Calling for impeachment as the House Speaker schedules an urgent meeting to try to hold the caucus together. Last-ditch appeal. The president's lawyers are appealing a federal judge's ruling upholding a congressional subpoena for records from his longtime accounting firm, as another judge is to hear an appeal by the president and family members against the subpoena seeking bank records. And sprucing up state TV. North Korea's propaganda machine gets a makeover as the pink lady, who was the TV face of the regime for decades, gives way to a new generation and new techniques. I'm Wolf Blitzer. You're in the Situation Room.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Breaking news, 2 more former White House officials are slapped with subpoenas as the House Judiciary Committee asks for documents and appearances from former Communications Director Hope Hicks and Annie Donaldson, Deputy Chief of Staff to Don McGahn. Also breaking, a growing push among House Democrats to begin impeachment proceedings against President Trump. There will be a caucus-wide meeting tomorrow where it's expected impeachment will be raised. For some, the final straw was the failure of former White House counsel Don McGahn to appear at today's House Judiciary Committee hearing on the instructions of the White House, which has stonewalled Democratic investigations at every turn. Speaker Nancy Pelosi is not on board yet, but Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler is vowing to hold the president, and I'm quoting him now, accountable one way or the other. I'll speak with Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal of the Judiciary Committee, and our correspondents and analysts will have full coverage of the day's top stories. Let's begin with 2 new subpoenas issued by the House Judiciary Committee to 2 more former White House officials. Let's go straight to our congressional correspondent, Phil Mattingly, up on Capitol Hill. Phil, the committee's requests continue to be stonewalled. Former counsel Don McGahn was a no-show at today's judiciary hearing. Now the committee is stepping up the pressure. What's the strategy with these latest subpoenas?
To put it bluntly, Wolf, keep the pressure on. Make clear, according to Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler of the Judiciary Committee, that they are not relenting, even in the face of the White House defiance related to several subpoenas, blocking all aspects of the investigation they possibly can. And they are going to keep going after White House officials or former White House officials connected to the president in their sweeping investigation into possible obstruction of justice. Now, these 2 names, Annie Donaldson and Hope Hicks, 2 of the people that were closest to the president, and Don McGahn, who you noted did not show up today for a scheduled hearing, did not comply with the subpoena, showing kind of an increased broad effort to increase pressure on White House officials that may have knowledge related to the committee's ongoing obstruction of justice case or investigation. And the reason why this is so important is it doesn't just push back against the White House, which has been defying congressional Democrats in every way, but it also sends a message to their own counterparts, to House Democrats. Wolf, as you noted, over the course of the last 24 hours, just the sheer frustration has caused a lot of Democrats who have been falling into line behind Speaker Nancy Pelosi, behind the committee chairman, that impeachment at least is not ready for now, are starting to turn in a different direction. Take a listen to what some had to say today.
I think the case gets stronger the more they stonewall the Congress.
I'm getting there. I think what the president has done has put us in a position where we cannot get any information to do the oversight that we need to do.
I think impeaching and choosing to not impeach when there's an abundance of evidence could also be construed as politically motivated as well. And we can't be scared of elections. We need to uphold the rule of law.
Now, Wolf, the divisions flared last night in meetings with leadership members, not just rank and file members, but committee chairs, senior members of the House Judiciary Committee, saying the best pathway forward, given the reluctance of the White House to give anything to congressional Democrats, is to start an impeachment inquiry. But Speaker Pelosi has remained firm. The fact that the Senate, controlled by Republicans, 53-47, most certainly would not move forward on an impeachment inquiry, certainly would not vote against the president on this. She believes it is a political issue, and she's also concerned about the idea that if they were to go down that road, it would take all eyes off of the other issues that Democrats, many of whom flipped Trump districts in 2018, are focused on, whether it's health care or prescription drugs or infrastructure. That is something Pelosi wants to avoid. Now, up until this point, members have mostly fallen in line behind Pelosi, but it is very clear the frustration right now amongst House Democrats is palpable. The White House making clear they're not going to comply with anything. That is leading Democrats to say something, anything has to be done. The real question is, if the subpoenas for 2 more former White House officials today will help assuage some of those concerns, or whether it will just continue to grow in the days ahead.
And Phil, amidst all of this, CNN has learned that Robert Mueller may be backing away from testifying before Congress. How big of a blow is that potentially to Democrats?
Wolf, when you talk to Democrats, a number that I've talked to today have made clear they need something to take the air out of the balloon here, and that something would be the testimony of someone who's important related to the Mueller report, whether it was Don McGahn, who obviously defied his subpoena today, or whether it's the special counsel, someone Democrats have long assumed would at some point come to Capitol Hill. But our colleagues Laura Jarrett over at the Justice Department, Manu Raju, and Jeremy Erb up here on Capitol Hill have discovered, talking to sources, that the special counsel's team has been reticent to send him up to Capitol Hill. They don't want him to appear political after spending 2 years saying almost nothing related to his investigation at all. Now, the negotiations are ongoing, and as you recall, the Attorney General, William Barr, has said it's up to Bob, that's a direct quote from an interview with the Wall Street Journal, as to whether or not he testifies. There's been some talk about perhaps having testimony in a closed-door setting. That might be a way to secure the testimony. But I've talked to Democrats up here, Wolf, who have made clear they want that testimony, at least in part, to be in public, and as of this moment, that has not been secured.
Phil Mattingly up on Capitol Hill, thank you very much. Let's go to our chief White House correspondent, Jim Acosta. Jim, the president and his team, they're not giving an inch in this battle, and now these 2 new subpoenas are coming forward. Any reaction, first of all, from there?
Not yet, Wolf, but if past is prologue, the White House, they're showing no signs of backing down right now in their standoff with House Democrats over their investigations of the president. Aides of the president say the administration is prepared to battle it out with Democrats in court. Mr. Trump is fighting back as well by escalating his rhetoric as he once again accused his adversaries of treason. In another swipe at Democrats tonight, the president's legal team is aggressively fighting to appeal a federal judge's ruling that ordered Mr. Trump's longtime accounting firm, Mazars, to turn over his financial records to House investigators, who see those documents as a potential impeachment motherlode.
This is a very important loss for him. It sets the stage for the documents, his tax returns, and other information to be available.
Also tonight, an empty table that speaks volumes, as former White House counsel Don McGahn followed Trump administration instructions and defied a subpoena to testify before the House Judiciary Committee, where Chairman Jerry Nadler warned he's running out of patience.
Mr. McGahn has a legal obligation to be here for this scheduled appearance. If he does not immediately correct his mistake, this committee will have no choice but to enforce the subpoena against him.
Despite threats from Congress to go to court, Mr. Trump is making it clear he's in no mood to cooperate. What do you have to say to Americans who feel that your administration is stonewalling all these investigations up on Capitol Hill? Why not let Don McGahn testify? Are you afraid of what he has to say?
I think we've been the most transparent administration in the history of our country. Now what happens is the Democrats want to redo, and we've had enough, and the country's had enough.
The president is continuing to take his case to his base, lobbing accusations at unnamed forces in the Russia investigation.
There was treason, and it should never be allowed to happen to another president again, ever, ever, ever.
Drawing a new twist on a familiar chant at his rallies.
Well, we have a great new Attorney General who's going to give it a very fair look.
That Attorney General, William Barr, told the Wall Street Journal he's sympathetic to the president's complaints that he's been unfairly targeted, adding, quote, "I felt the rules were being changed to hurt Trump, and I thought it was damaging for the presidency over the long haul." The president is clearly turning his attention to the campaign, hitting former Vice President Joe Biden in Pennsylvania.
Don't forget, Biden deserted you. He's not from Pennsylvania. I guess he was born here, but he left you, folks. He left you for another state.
The reality is Biden moved to Delaware when he was a child. Mr. Trump also appears to have his eye on South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg after his town hall on Fox.
Something strange is going on at Fox, folks. Something very strange.
The president remains focused on border issues heading into 2020, tapping former Virginia Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli to coordinate immigration policy at the Department of Homeland Security. That's despite Cuccinelli's past criticism of Mr. Trump during the 2016 campaign, which peaked at the Republican National Convention, where he put his anger with the party on display by throwing his credentials on the floor.
I'm not going to do this.
Sometimes I wonder if I'm watching my country commit political suicide, but I don't think it's really accurate to characterize him as a conservative.
Now, there was one other top official on the move over here at the White House. One of Mr. Trump's senior aides from the start of the administration, Johnny DeStefano, is leaving the president's team. That leaves the president without a key political advisor as House Democrats are talking more and more about impeachment. As you were just showing a few moments ago, Democrats are saying McGahn's refusal to testify has made them more open to the idea of impeachment. But when you talk to people over here at the White House, people who are close to the president, Wolf, they don't sound especially concerned about that kind of talk. And they argue that this is more of a worry for House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who is feeling the impeachment pressure from her own party. Wolf.
Important point. Jim Acosta, thank you very much. Joining us now, Democratic Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal of Washington State, a member of the Judiciary Committee. Congresswoman, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Wolf. Always great to be here.
Thank you. Your committee has just subpoenas, as you just heard, Hope Hicks. She was the former White House Communications Director, and Annie Donaldson. She was the chief of staff to the former White House counsel, Don McGahn. And her contemporaneous notes, by the way, feature prominently in the Mueller report. How important is their testimony on the question of obstruction?
I think it's very important. Annie Donaldson's notes might be one of the most important things that is in the report. It is our equivalent of the Watergate tapes in some way, but she actually documents exactly what the president said in numerous instances to Don McGahn. Don McGahn's testimony obviously was very important. Hope Hicks also figures prominently. These are all important individuals who we need to hear from directly and be able to lay out exactly what happened to them, confirm what is in the Mueller report, but go beyond that as well and make sure that we have all the information that we need in order to assess the 10 specific cases, potential cases of obstruction of justice that Robert Mueller laid out in the report.
Well, as you also heard, CNN has learned that Robert Mueller is now reluctant to testify publicly before Congress for fear of appearing political. You say, and I'm quoting now, you say we have to be very careful about restrictions on his testimony. What sort of restrictions are you willing to accept? For example, will you accept a closed-door private hearing?
Well, we really haven't. We heard about this from you. We have not heard about this, on our own through the chairman. So I have no idea what the discussions are, what Robert Mueller actually has or hasn't said. But I think one of the key things that I was saying to Manu earlier is, we cannot be in a situation where we are constrained from talking about what we hear. We cannot be in a situation where only one or two members are talking with Robert Mueller. Nancy Pelosi has been very clear about this. Jerry Nadler has been very clear about this. We need to make sure that the public gets this information. This is a report that should have been released in its entirety to the public. And in fact, House Republicans voted with us unanimously, not unanimously, but overwhelmingly to allow the Mueller report to be released. And then all of a sudden, they're fine with the, significant redactions without the underlying information. So we just need this to be public. We need people to be able to see what is happening. And we need to be able to have a public discussion about what has happened, what the president has done, these obstruction of justice cases that are so serious, Wolf, that I do not think, I just don't think we can ignore what is happening, the stonewalling that is coming from the White House. And I'll tell you this, I do not think that the American people, Republican, Independent, or Democrat, want a president who is above the law. I just don't think that's true.
Well, you're one of the members of the Judiciary Committee, Congresswoman, calling for the chairman, Jerry Nadler, to open a formal impeachment inquiry. The House Speaker says the current strategy is working. She points out that a federal judge just upheld a subpoena for the president's financial records. Why move toward impeachment proceedings when the court, at least in this particular case, appears to be on your side?
Well, let me say, first of all, that House Democrats are completely united on two critical things. Number one, we are going to deliver on our For the Agenda people. Number two, all Democrats believe that the president cannot be above the law and that we have to hold this administration accountable. The question is, how do you do that? And many of us who are on the Judiciary Committee have been dealing with this over and over again. I've read the Mueller report now 3 times in its entirety. So we really understand exactly what is happening. Not every single member of our caucus has that same information. And so some of what's happening now is a discussion. And I respect what Speaker Pelosi is doing. She has a very very different role. She's got to lead the caucus. But those of us who are in the Judiciary Committee believe that this is warranted to start an impeachment inquiry. Of course, what the courts do matter. And Judge Mehta's decision, a couple of days ago was very, very important. But that can't be the only thing we do. We still have to do our job, and we still have to uphold the Constitution.
Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Wolf.
Up next, breaking news. Already locked in a battle with the Trump administration, House Democrats now issued 2 more subpoenas for ex-White House officials. And we're also learning why Special Counsel Robert Mueller's team is now reluctant to have him testify publicly before the House Judiciary Committee.
Wake up. There's a lot that needs to get done today. Small things, big things, too hard to do alone things. Day after day, you need to get it all done. And here to listen and help you through it all is Bank of America, with the expertise and know-how you need to reach that blissful state of doneness. So let's get after it. What would you like the power to do?
We call it the mother standard of care. It's the idea that if our mothers were diagnosed with cancer, how would we want them to be treated? That's exactly how we care for you, with answers and actions to hear your concerns, quiet your fears, lift your spirits. That's the mother standard of care. This is how we inspire hope. This is how we heal. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Appointments available now.
All right.
Spicy tuna roll. Nice. Sashimi combo.
With the Grubhub delivery app, if you want it all,
Delivery for Troy.
you can get it all. Get $10 off on your first order. Grubhub. Restaurants you love delivered.
I'll be right back.
With moderate to severe Crohn's disease, I was there. Just not always where I needed to be.
Is she all right?
I hope so. So I talked to my doctor about Humira. I learned Humira is for people who still have symptoms of Crohn's disease after trying other medications. And the majority of people on Humira saw significant symptom relief, and many achieved remission in as little as 4 weeks.
Humira can lower your ability to fight infections, including tuberculosis. Serious, sometimes fatal infections and cancers, including lymphoma, have happened, as have blood, liver, and nervous system problems, serious allergic reactions, and new or worsening heart failure. Before treatment, get tested for TB. Tell your doctor if you've been to areas where certain fungal infections are common, and if you've had TB, hepatitis B, are prone to infections, or have flu-like symptoms or sores. Don't start Humira if you have an infection.
Be there for you and them. Ask your gastroenterologist about Humira. With Humira, remission is possible.
I have always wanted to do this. This is gonna be awesome. Let's do this!
Babe, what are you doing?
Gonna demo the bathroom. Who are you?
The Bathfitter installer, remember? Bathfitter custom made our new bath to fit perfectly over the old one, so there's no demo or mess.
Impressive. Wait, so no demo? Sorry, man.
Bathfitter will remodel your bath with no messy demolition in as little as 1 day. Call now or visit bathfitter.com for a free in-home consultation.
Why use the Home Advisor app to find home improvement pros?
I found a great local painter when I was in line at the grocery store.
I read reviews of a few electricians while walking my dog.
I booked a plumber with just a click.
And it's free to use. Go to homeadvisor.com or download the free app.
My experience with USA Air has been excellent. They really appreciate the military family, and it really shows.
With all that USAA offers, why go with anybody else? We know their rates are good. We know that they're always going to take care of us.
It was an instant savings, and I should have changed a long time ago.
It was funny because when we would call another insurance company, they would say, oh, we can't be USAA.
We're the Weber family.
We're the Tennies.
We're the Hells, and we're USAA members for life.
Get your USAA auto insurance quote today.
3 rows of seating, class-leading leg room, an on-demand all-wheel drive system with central locking differential. The blueprints were as ambitious as they come. That's how we knew it had to be made.
$4 million. We should take that money. It'll be easy. Just a couple old people.
After I count down 3 rounds, in hell, I'll be in good company.
Let's stay the plan.
I am going to kill you.
He's an old man. He's not, turns out.
Closed captioning brought to you by Mesobook.com.
Mesothelioma. It's all we do. With 9 offices across the country, let us come meet with you. Call us at 1-800-213-8000.
The breaking news this hour, the House Judiciary Committee issuing subpoenas to former White House officials Hope Hicks and Annie Donaldson hours after former White House counsel Don McGahn defied his subpoena and was a no-show at the hearing earlier in the day. Let's get some more on all the breaking news with our experts and our analyst, Gloria Borger. What's the committee's strategy right now? Is it issuing yet more subpoenas that potentially could also be ignored?
Sure, and I think they probably will be ignored. I think the committee strategy is somehow to keep the pressure on the White House to keep doing this, but they know what the answer is going to be. The answer is going to be they're going to claim privilege over these conversations, say, with Hope Hicks or Annie Donaldson, who worked in the White House counsel's office. I mean, they know they're going to get turned down, but they're going to keep turning this screw here tighter and tighter and tighter and hope that something finally gives. I don't know whether it will or not, honestly.
You know, it's interesting, Laura, because Annie Donaldson was the former chief of staff to the former White House counsel, Don McGahn, and she was a meticulous note taker. If you go through the Mueller report, we got some examples, a lot of notes in there backing up what Mueller, what McGahn was telling Mueller and all of that. Would hearing from Donaldson be the same as hearing from McGahn, or would it be different?
In some ways, it might be even better because she is sort of the one who's in the room, the eyes and the ears for all of these sort of eyebrow-raising conversations about the Russia investigation. She's there, remember the day that Comey gets fired, and she writes something to the effect of, "Is this the end?" Or, she's pretty honest. She says things like, "Oh, just another Russia fire drill." So I think lawmakers could have a field day questioning her. Obviously, she's McGahn's number 2. She's a right-hand person. She worked with him day in and day out. So it's not the White House counsel itself, but it's pretty darn close.
You know, and one of her notes from when she was taking notes, she writes at one point, "Is this the beginning of the end?" As you point out. What do all these new subpoenas from the House Judiciary Committee tell you, Ryan, about the Democrats' strategy?
Look, their strategy is to take the Mueller report and bring it to life in congressional testimony. Take the Mueller report, let's be honest, it was shaped by the Attorney General of the United States. Mm-hmm. That's the most impressions of the Mueller report is that it was a bit of a wash. And Democrats don't believe that. They believe the second half of the report, especially on obstruction of justice, is highly incriminating. And they need witnesses up there to bring this to life, to testify, frankly, with some drama about the president's behavior. Right, and that's the only way I think they're going to change the public opinion on this that was shaped by the Trump administration.
And the Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, Jackie, has called another caucus-wide Democratic meeting tomorrow morning to discuss. There seems to be an increasing number of Democrats who are saying at least begin the process, the procedure for impeachment.
Certainly the loudest members of the caucus right now are calling for impeachment or saying the process needs to start, with the exception of Nancy Pelosi. I think the people to watch the closest are Jerry Nadler, Elijah Cummings, Adam Schiff, the committee chairs that are being directly affected by a lot of these shenanigans with the White House. If they increasingly waver toward impeachment, that's going to increase the pressure on Nancy Pelosi more so than anyone else.
But you know, as Hakeem Jeffries said today, and he's a member of the leadership, he said, why would we move towards impeachment when we're winning? If you look at the polls in the American public, even though the president says totally exonerated, no collusion, no obstruction, the American public believes that the president did something wrong. And they also don't want the Congress to continue to exhaust them with these investigations. So they already do have the public on their side. And the question is, do they risk, as Jeffries was sort of alluding to, do they risk losing the public in all of this if they push it too far?
All right, well, the president has just tweeted about Don McGahn. We're going to have that for our viewers. We'll take a quick break. Much more right after this.
Chapter 24. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to shew him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations. And then shall the end come. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake those days shall be shortened. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall shew great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with the sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender, and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. So likewise ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass, till all these things be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Then shall two be in the field, the one shall be taken, the other left. Two women shall be grinding at the mill, the one shall be taken, and the other left. Watch, therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched, and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over his household, to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Verily I say unto you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. But, and if that evil servant shall say in his heart, My Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken, the Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, and in an hour that he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Should hear from him, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if they have to reach some kind of conclusion about him maybe doing it privately. I don't know.
Would private testimony from Mueller have the same impact as public testimony, which of course would be televised live?
Absolutely not. It will be completely, especially if partisans can control themselves with the theatrics. And you just have, we've already seen this. Look at the Michael Cohen hearing. The fact that that was on television had a much larger impact than anything he would have said behind closed doors, even though that was untrue, but we can go, that's something else entirely. And especially with this president, he knows the value of television, of this testimony. It's probably one of the reasons Don McGahn has been asked not to testify, no matter what the president says, because a lot of people didn't read the Mueller report. They only saw what Bob Barr put out, or have only heard it through a certain context. Having the actual people sitting there and talking is very different. He'll also be asked about the letter he sent after Barr put out that one-page memo, and be asked to, explain his objections with it. There's a lot of ground that would cover, and it would bring a lot more issues right in front of the public.
Is the president nervous about this?
Well, look, just as Laura said, he can't make up his mind as to whether he thinks this report exonerates him and was great or not. Look, I think there are a lot of Republicans who would have some questions for Mueller that they think would be very good from their side of this debate, right? There would be a lot of questions about Russia collusion and some of the storylines that Mueller investigated and learned were not as incriminating as people thought. So Mueller would have plenty to say that the White House might actually be okay with. The part that is by far the most damning for the president is he lays out a roadmap for charging this president with obstruction.
Laura, this was all your terrific reporting.
This is one of the areas, though, where you see this clash between leadership in the House and sort of the rank-and-file Democrats, and who want to be a little bit more aggressive. We heard from several of them today that said Mueller must testify in public. But yet, when Manu Raju, our colleague on Capitol Hill, asked Jerry Nadler, the chairman, he said he didn't want to talk about it, and he said essentially declined to comment, no comment there at all. But there's going to be a little bit of a dance there, because Mueller's team is saying, well, wait a minute, we may need to talk about the format, public versus private. And one of the sticking points is whether he could do the questioning part behind closed doors. But if the rank-and-file Democrats are not on board with that, Jerry Nadler is going to have to make a choice there.
A very significant choice indeed. Stick around. There's a CNN exclusive I want to get to right now. Iran's foreign minister denying his country was involved in recent attacks on a Saudi ship and a pipeline. In an interview with CNN senior international correspondent Fred Pleitgen, he also discussed possible negotiations with the Trump administration, which he accuses of playing what he calls a very dangerous game.
We are not willing to talk to people who have broken their promises, because we talk to people. We did not believe that our nuclear program, our nuclear energy program, required us to provide any concessions or provide any confidence-building measures. But we engaged, we acted in good faith, we negotiated, we reached a deal. What the United States is saying is that we make a deal, whatever we can get you in the negotiations through the deal is fine. Whatever we cannot get you, we'll come back to try to get you. This is not the way serious countries deal with each other. The United States may be used to doing that with clients, but they cannot do that with Iran.
How dangerous do you think the situation is currently in the Persian Gulf, with a U.S. aircraft carrier on its way, B-52 bombers, and at the same time, from your side, saying, look, we don't want an escalation, but it will be painful if there is one?
Well, there will be painful consequences for everybody. if there is an escalation against Iran. That's for sure. The United States is engaging in economic warfare against Iran. It has to stop. Economic war means targeting Iranian people. That has to stop. The United States does not have the legal position, does not have the moral position, does not have the political position, does not have the international position to impose economic war on Iran. Iran is not interested in escalation. We have said very clearly that we will not be the party to begin escalation, but we will defend ourselves. Now, having all these military assets in a small waterway is in and of itself prone to accident, particularly when you have people who are interested in accidents. So extreme prudence is required, and we believe that the United States is playing a very, very dangerous game.
Coming up, Beto O'Rourke is relaunching his presidential campaign as he takes part in the CNN town hall later tonight. We're going to get a preview. Plus, North Korean news looks to the West as it undergoes a propaganda makeover.
Now, New York-inspired shades. Superstay Matte Ink from Maybelline, New York. Bold color. Urban edge.
Town Hall with former Congressman Beto O'Rourke live from Des Moines, Iowa. CNN's Dana Bash will moderate. And CNN political director David Chalian is on the scene for us at the Town Hall site. David, so what does Beto O'Rourke need to accomplish tonight?
Well, I think mission number one for O'Rourke, Wolf, is to re-energize his campaign, capture some of the enthusiasm that existed when he first got into this race back in March. He has slipped a bit since then. So reintroduce himself in some way, or introduce himself for those just tuning in, why he is the best Democrat equipped to take on Donald Trump in this field of 23. Get that energy going, bring in those donations, of course, sign up those volunteers. I think that's sort of mission critical for Beto O'Rourke tonight.
Listen to what Beto O'Rourke, David, said last night in Iowa about playing nice with the Republicans.
I'm not naive about the forces that we face. It is not just Donald Trump. There is no more, I'm trying to use polite language here, but you know what I'm talking about when I talk about Mitch McConnell. If we play nicely by the set rules, we're going to end up with the same results.
Interesting, because we almost heard an opposite message from Joe Biden this weekend in Philadelphia, saying unity would help win the presidency. What's your analysis?
Yes, in fact, you're right. Joe Biden, he just completely disagrees with this notion that Democrats are looking for somebody to just be a fighter, that they are also looking for someone to sort of heal the nation, unify the nation after these turbulent political times, be able to reach out across the aisle. This is what Joe Biden is selling. You just heard Beto O'Rourke there make a different appeal, and I don't think it's by accident. I mean, I think the contrast that he's trying to draw is clear, and that is there's a faction inside the Democratic Party, Wolf, that thinks that Republicans should not be reached out towards, but that actually should be taken on, confronted, and defeated. There's that fighter notion, and there's that return to normal, the post-chaotic notion. I think that's a debate that's going to happen inside the Democratic Party throughout this process.
Several other Democratic candidates, David, attended abortion rights rallies today. Is this shaping up to be a central issue in the next election?
The right. It's certainly a hot issue right now. I don't know that we're going to see it stay sort of at the top. People still tell us healthcare is most important to them, climate change. But this is an issue that activates the Democratic base, and that is why you're going to see Democratic candidates continue to talk about it, Wolf.
David Chalian on the scene for us in Iowa. Thank you very much. And our CNN presidential town hall with Beto O'Rourke starts at 10 p.m. Eastern later tonight only here on CNN. Coming up, North Korea's propaganda makeover. We're going to show you what's strikingly different about its newscast. Plus, breaking news, House Democrats slap 2 more former White House officials with subpoenas.
San Quinn, red state, blue state.
North Korea's propaganda machine is getting a makeover, as you've just seen. Brian Todd has been looking into this for us. So, Brian, tell our viewers what you're learning.
Wolf, we have recently been seeing sleeker-looking newscasts on North Korean state TV. Younger anchors, a more Western-looking production. This is part of Kim Jong-un's propaganda makeover, and it includes the phasing out of a woman who became something of a TV legend in North Korea. She is called the Pink Lady, North Korean state television's version of Walter Cronkite. For decades, Ri Chun-hee delivered North Korea's most grand announcements with breathless energy. Once even donning all black and crying openly as she announced the death of Kim Jong-un's father. But tonight, it appears North Korean state television is looking to refresh its image, putting Ri Chun-hee into semi-retirement. The Pink Lady's traditional dress and artistic backdrop have been replaced with younger anchors and a sleeker TV studio look for its propaganda-filled newscasts. While it's all still propaganda, it looks decidedly Western, with reporters out into the field covering regular North Korean citizens, and fancy graphics, drone footage, and even time-lapse video.
This is something that they want to tell their people. We are modernizing under our young leader, and with his youth comes a whole new level of technology.
In one instance, they even stage an interruption on set. A presenter walks in and hands the anchor papers with a breaking news update on how a steel factory is doing. Analysts who study the regime's media and propaganda machines say the change in North Korean state TV's broadcasts could be influenced by more content coming in from outside North Korea.
They do also have the ability to go to the local DVD shop and buy Russian, Romanian, Chinese TV soap operas and movies. And so they are aware of foreign content, and some of that is certainly seeping into how they present their TV.
Analysts say this is also part of Kim Jong-un's broader makeover, a retooling of North Korea's image from that of a stodgy Cold War-era hermit kingdom to a portrayal of a modern, vigorous country with young leadership. Part of that effort, analysts say, involves Kim promoting his younger sister, Kim Yo-jong, to powerful positions, even putting her front and center at international events such as the Winter Olympics. Cameras are even allowed to capture Kim at pop concerts with his glamorous wife, Ri Sol-ju, a former orchestra singer.
Kim Jong-un is trying to show his audience that he is the young leader, he's dynamic, that he's actually the younger generation, that he's in touch with pop culture.
As for those sleeker propaganda casts, experts believe they are part of Kim's plan to keep younger North Koreans in line with the regime.
He wants to get his kids hooked on drones, on devices, on technology, on cell phones. He dangles them as enticements for what their future may hold, what kind of creature comforts may lie in store for them if they're loyal to the regime.
Analysts say there is a danger with this technology and propaganda makeover for Kim's regime, that with faster-paced newscasts, still not airing live but turned around much more quickly than they were before, and with the technology moving faster than the regime can sometimes keep up with, there is a risk that Kim and his circle could lose some control of their message. Wolf, That anchor, Ri Chun-hee, is not gone forever. She'll be brought back for big announcements.
Very interesting indeed. Good report, Brian. Thank you very much. Coming up, the House Judiciary Committee subpoenas 2 more ex-White House officials after former White House counsel Don McGahn defies a subpoena, sparking more impeachment calls from Democrats. And the U.S. military intercepts Russian warplanes, I should say, off the coast of Alaska. What's behind Moscow's latest move?
I can't read.
Matthew 24. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars, and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines, and pestilences, and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house, neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray ye, that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs, and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender, and putteth forth leaves, Ye know that summer is nigh. So likewise ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass, till all these things be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying, and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came, and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Then shall two be in the field, the one shall be taken, the other left. 2 women shall be grinding at the mill, the one shall be taken, and the other left. Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched, and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over his household to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant, whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Verily I say unto you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. But, and if that evil servant shall say in his heart, My Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken, the Lord of that servant shall come in a day, when he looketh not for him, and in an hour that he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Matthew 25. Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps, and went forth.
So many Democrats are keeping the subpoenas coming despite defiance by the White House.
No question about it. Another confrontation flaring up between House Democrats and the White House. And if the pattern here has been that the White House has said no, even to congressional subpoenas, and that has led more calls from members, veterans, from freshman members, committee chairmen to suggest it's time to open an impeachment inquiry. One of President Trump's closest confidants now served with a subpoena. Hope Hicks, the president's longtime advisor and former communications director, compelled to provide records and testimony to the House Judiciary Committee next month about potential obstruction of justice at the White House. Also, the Democratic-led committee serving a subpoena to Annie Donaldson, a former top aide in the White House counsel's office who served as chief of staff to Don McGahn. But the White House has resisted on all fronts and has said that former top officials cannot be compelled to testify about their conversations with the president. And that has prompted more Democrats to say their only recourse is impeachment.
Nobody runs for Congress with the idea that I want to go there and start impeachment, but I think that's what it's come to.
Tonight, there's a growing rift in the Democratic caucus to launch an impeachment inquiry. The pressure building across the caucus from veteran members.
The impeachment process is going to be inevitable. It's just a question of when, not if.
To freshmen. Do you think it's time to move forward with an impeachment inquiry?
I do. I personally do. We can't be scared of elections. We need to uphold the rule of law.
And even some skeptics are softening their opposition.
You know, I think the case gets stronger the more they stonewall the Congress.
Are you there yet?
I'm getting there. I think what the president has done has put us in a position where we cannot get any information to do the oversight that we need to do.
But the most important person still not convinced.
Madam Speaker, are you under increased pressure to impeach the president from your caucus? No.
That's House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who believes her caucus should methodically pursue their investigations while focusing on an economic agenda. And in private meetings Monday night, Pelosi argued the strategy is getting results, pointing to a court ruling that could force a Trump accounting firm to turn over financial records to the House Oversight Committee. Many of her allies agree.
You don't think it makes sense to open an impeachment inquiry right now?
The question is, why would we open an impeachment inquiry if we're winning?
But today, Democrats did not get what they wanted after Don McGahn was a no-show at a House Judiciary Committee hearing after the president directed him not to comply with the subpoena.
We will not allow the president to prevent the American people from hearing from this witness. We will not allow the president to stop this investigation.
Now, one witness that the Democrats in the House Judiciary Committee have wanted to hear from is Bob Mueller, the special counsel. And Wolf, we have learned today why he has been reluctant to testify, and it's because he wants to do at least some of this testimony behind closed doors. That's what the special counsel's team has relayed to the House Judiciary Committee. But Democrats are pushing back, including some members of the committee, including one, David Cicilline, who told me that the American people, as he said, have a right to see the results of the investigation and the person who led it. And I get a chance to ask Jerry Nadler, the Judiciary Chairman, about the idea of private testimony by Bob Mueller, and he said no comment. Wolf.
Interesting. All right, Manu, thank you very much. Manu Raju up on Capitol Hill. Now to the White House, facing more subpoenas as the president ramps up his legal battle to ignore them. Our chief White House correspondent, Jim Acosta, is joining us. Jim, House Democrats are now demanding to hear from one of the president's longtime confidants, Hope Hicks.
That's right, Wolf. And when you talk to sources over here at the White House, they essentially say that this president is going to have the same approach to Hope Hicks testifying up on Capitol Hill as he had with Don McGahn, that they're going to assert some kind of immunity over Hope Hicks and prevent her from testifying and complying with that subpoena. And so it seems as if that confrontation is heading in the same direction as we've seen other confrontations, as this White House puts up this very stout defense in the face of all of these investigations coming from House Democrats. White House officials are showing no signs of backing down tonight in their standoff with House Democrats over these investigations of the president. Aides to the president say the administration is prepared to battle out all of these things in court with Democrats. And Mr. Trump is fighting back as well, as he's been escalating his rhetoric, once again accusing his adversaries of treason. In another swipe at Democrats tonight, the president's legal team is aggressively fighting to appeal a federal judge's ruling that ordered Mr. Trump's longtime accounting firm, Mazars, to turn over his financial records to House investigators, who see those documents as a potential impeachment motherlode.
This is a very important loss for him. It sets the stage for the documents, his tax returns, and other information to be available.
Also tonight, an empty table that speaks volumes, as former White House counsel Don McGahn followed Trump administration instructions and defied a subpoena to testify before the House Judiciary Committee, where Chairman Jerry Nadler warned he's running out of patience.
Mr. McGahn has a legal obligation to be here for this scheduled appearance. If he does not immediately correct his mistake, this committee will have no choice but to enforce the subpoena against him.
Despite threats from Congress to go to court, Mr. Trump is making it clear he's in no mood to cooperate. What do you have to say to Americans who feel that your administration is stonewalling all these investigations up on Capitol Hill? Why not let Don McGahn testify? Are you afraid of what he has to say?
I think we've been the most transparent administration in the history of our country. Now what happens is the Democrats want to redo, and we've had enough, and the country's had enough.
The president is continuing to take his case to his base, lobbing accusations at unnamed forces in the Russia investigation.
There was treason, and it should never be allowed to happen to another president again, ever, ever, ever.
Drawing a new twist on a familiar chant at his rallies.
Well, we have a great new Attorney General who's going to give it a very fair look.
That Attorney General, William Barr, told the Wall Street Journal he's sympathetic to the president's complaints that he's been unfairly targeted, adding, quote, "I felt the rules were being changed to hurt Trump, and I thought it was damaging for the presidency over the long haul." The president is clearly turning his attention to the campaign, hitting former Vice President Joe Biden in Pennsylvania.
Don't forget, Biden deserted you. He's not from Pennsylvania. I guess he was born here, but he left you, folks. He left you for another state.
The reality is Biden moved to Delaware when he was a child. Mr. Trump also appears to have his eye on South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg after his town hall on Fox.
Something strange is going on at Fox. Well, something very strange.
The president remains focused on border issues heading into 2020, tapping former Virginia Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli to coordinate immigration policy at the Department of Homeland Security. That's despite Cuccinelli's past criticism of Mr. Trump during the 2016 campaign, which peaked at the Republican National Convention, where he put his anger with the party on display by throwing his credentials on the floor.
I'm not going to do this. Sometimes I wonder if I'm watching my country commit political suicide, but I don't think it's really accurate to characterize him as a conservative.
Now, there was one other top official on the move over here at the White House today. One of Mr. Trump's most senior aides from the start of the administration, Johnny DeStefano, is leaving the president's team. That leaves the president without a key political advisor as House Democrats are talking more and more about impeachment. Democrats are saying McGahn's refusal to testify has made them more open to the idea of impeachment, as you were just showing a few moments ago. But people close to the president don't sound especially concerned about that kind of talk, Wolf, and argue that this is more of a worry at this point for the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who is feeling the impeachment pressure from her own caucus. Wolf.
All right, Jim Acosta at the White House, thank you. Joining us now, Congressman Harley Rouda, a Democrat who serves on the Oversight and Reform Committee. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Wolf.
The Judiciary Committee, as you know, has just issued these subpoenas for Hope Hicks, the former White House Communications Director, and Annie Donaldson. She was Don McGahn's chief of staff. And the Mueller report relies heavily on her notes she took at the White House. We're showing our viewers some of them that were included in the Mueller report. There were many of them there. How important do you think it is, Congressman, to get their testimony?
Well, it's important, but it's important to get everybody's testimony. But I don't have a lot of faith in getting it under the current circumstances. We've seen this administration and this president thwart all of our efforts, whether it's subpoenas or requests for documentation. And, we're getting to the point where we're going to have to draw a line in the sand and ask that it be provided by that date.
And what happens if it's not?
I think we start impeachment proceedings. We're left with no other choice. This is a simple right and wrong issue. This is how we raise our kids. You do what's right. And here we have a president who continues to, again, thwart what is clearly the obligations that they have and our rights under the Constitution. And I'm just struck by the fact that we did not come here to Congress, any of this freshman class, to start impeachment proceedings. We came here because we cared about climate change. We cared about bringing drug prices down. We cared about the corruption in government. And to have a president who further extends that corruption is going to cause us to have to take action.
The CNN has also learned that Robert Mueller is now apparently reluctant to testify before Congress publicly over concerns that this would be seen as political after 2 years of silence from the special counsel. What do you make of that?
I'm not sure what to make of that, Wolf, I'll be honest, because I, like all Americans, I want to see Mueller testify in a public setting. And whether that refrain of his unwillingness to testify publicly is truly his sentiments or what's being driven by the Attorney General and the Department of Justice, I think we got to dig a little bit deeper to find out.
Should Democratic leaders accept a closed-door hearing with Mueller?
If that's the best we can get, yes, but I would, again, prefer to see a public hearing.
The dramatic developments included a federal judge yesterday upholding a subpoena by your committee, the House Oversight Committee, for President Trump's financial records when he was a private citizen. How significant is that?
Well, on one hand, it is significant, but on the other hand, it isn't. They simply followed legal precedent in doing exactly what the court should do. But we should all be assured that the court system is doing what is right, demanding that those tax returns be released to Congress. They have 7 days to comply with it, and I'm hopeful that in spite of the appeal by the administration, we will see those tax returns soon because the American public deserves to see them.
Back in February, as you'll recall, Michael Cohen, the president's former fixer and lawyer, testified before your committee that the president's personal lawyer, Jay Sekulow, was at the very least aware of his false testimony to Congress on the Trump Tower Moscow project. Now a transcript from his closed-door testimony before the House Intelligence Committee shows Cohen believed President Trump also had seen that false testimony. How does your committee plan to pursue this?
Well, on one hand, I take anything Michael Cohen says with a shaker of salt. He is a known liar. But we have to ascertain whether he is telling the truth here because he has no reason to lie. So that's really going to come down to working with Chairman Cummings and the rest of the Oversight Committee to determine how to approach the best way to further dig in on this information.
On the issue of the House launching impeachment proceedings, there's going to be a big meeting with Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker. All the Democrats in the caucus will be there. I assume you'll be there as well. What do you think? Do you think she's shifting her attitude?
I think she's been very clear all along that if we continue to be stymied in our desire on behalf of the American people to have the subpoenas honored and the information provided, then we're getting closer and closer to have no other choice but to take further action, whether that's first through the court system and drawing a line in the sand, as I suggested earlier, or going straight to impeachment proceedings. That's going to be one of the things we will want to talk to her about.
How much pressure is she getting?
You know, it's hard to say. I think it depends on who you talk to, right? It's a large caucus with a lot of opinions. But we also are seeing the pressure come from the Republican side, as we saw with Congressman Amash. But I will tell you, just today, I was in an elevator with another Republican, and it was just the two of us. And I said, you know, come on, what's going on here? You guys know this is black and white. This is right and wrong. And he said he can't do it because he knows that there's evidence of obstruction of justice, but for political reasons will not get on board with Congressman Amash. And I think that's horrible. That's not what we came to Washington, D.C. for, to check political wins. We came here to do our job. And if our job requires us to take the president on, that's exactly what we should do.
Are other Republicans telling you that as well? And do you want to share who told you that?
Well, I don't want to share because I don't want to breach the confidence, but I can assure you, and you know this too, Wolf, there are Republicans in both houses, both chambers, who privately talk about how our Constitution is being challenged by this president, but have the unwillingness or the backbone to do what is ethically correct and call him out for what he's been doing.
You think any of them will do that? We know Justin Amash has done it. Do you think others will?
Well, I think if we get the evidence that we deserve and the subpoenas are honored and it tells a tale that requires them to start getting on board, then yes, they need to get on board. But it may very well be that the evidence doesn't support it and they can maintain their position. But we will never know unless we get the opportunity to have those subpoenas honored and that evidence explored.
And finally, and very quickly, did you ask that Republican congressman to go public?
No, because he made it very clear he wasn't.
Congressman Harley Root, thanks so much for your going public, and we're grateful to you for that.
Thank you, Wolf.
More breaking news just ahead on the new subpoenas for former White House officials, including Trump confidant Hope Hicks. What might she reveal if she testifies? And when House Democrats meet in the morning, are they likely to reach a consensus on impeachment?
YouTube viewers, listen, as I'm getting, as they're on commercials, as they've been on commercials these last few times, I've been getting things ready that I'm going to play for you in this video after the news is over at 7. So listen, if you watch this video this time or any time, every time after you watch this video for the first time, during these commercials, if there is anything that you need to do it now. Pause the video while they're on commercial. Do it now. If you're not going to have time for what's up next, then watch my video titled Last President Word, and watch my video titled Matthew 24, or read Matthew 24 in your Bible. I recorded Matthew 24 from my Bible and put it here on YouTube for you. So if you read Matthew 24, it's the same thing that I have in my video titled Matthew 24. Thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe.
We're following a lot of breaking news, including new subpoenas just issued by the House Judiciary Committee demanding testimony and documents from former White House officials Hope Hicks and Annie Donaldson. Hicks was one of the president's closest confidants while she was in the White House. Donaldson was the chief of staff for former White House counsel Don McGahn. She was known for taking meticulous notes. Anyone who read the Mueller report has seen all those notes. Let's bring in our analysts. It's a significant development, but very quickly, Jamie, what's your reaction to what we just heard from Democratic Congressman Harley Ruda saying he's spoken even today with a Republican congressman and others who say, you know what, they don't like what's going on, but they're clearly not going to go public.
The system is broken. None of these Republicans, as long as those polls say that Donald Trump's approval rating is 88% or 91%, unless everybody stands up together. I mean, I hear this from Republicans all the time, but no one is going to go public or they end up like Mia Love. They're going to be primaried.
Well, we had one Republican who went public, Justin Amash, but he's also said, this one Republican said to him, the Republican said he knows there's evidence of obstruction.
You're referring to Congressman Amash.
Harley Ruda said, the Democratic congressman said, in a conversation with an unnamed Republican, the Republican said that.
Oh, I see. Yeah, but again, I think that goes right to Jamie's point, which is that Republicans, other than Congressman Amash, appear cowed by the president because they know they rely on the same voters that the president does. And as you pointed out, the president has roughly 90% approval ratings among Republican voters. And this should be a message to Democrats that this is what they're facing if they go forward with impeachment.
What do you think, Jackie, these latest subpoenas, including Hope Hicks and Annie Donaldson being called to come before Congress?
Yeah, well, these are sort of, I think, would be the crown jewels of testimonies. These are people who were just as close to Don McGahn and just as close to Donald Trump as many of the other people who have been called up to testify before Congress. I think they can help fill in a lot of gaps here. You know that, the Post has called Annie Donaldson's meticulous note-taking, which came out as a result of Don McGahn's meetings with the president, which have become sort of infamous in the Mueller report, as an equivalent to the Watergate tapes here. But, you know, if I think really what this is another test of the White House. If they continue to stonewall, then it's another incremental step towards initiating impeachment proceedings. That's exactly what this is.
The chances that these two women are going to testify are not slim to none. I think they're none to none. We're going to end up in the same situation where the White House is going to want to take it to court.
Yeah, and what we do know about these two people as well is that they have been really shy of the limelight. Annie Donaldson moved back to the South. Hope Hicks is in L.A. These are two characters who have been very reticent to be public figures in any way and have been stung by their experiences in Washington.
These latest two subpoenas, Phil, what does it tell you about the Democrats' strategy right now?
This smells like Nancy Pelosi. The point is, it's not just subpoenas about people, it's subpoenas about information like documents. You're talking about meticulous note-taking. This is Pelosi saying, facts first, fight later. Some of the Democrats have said, fight first, facts later. You get those documents, you get, for example, from Hope Hicks, documents maybe, if they're out there relating to how the president might have changed language about his son's meeting with a Russian lawyer at Trump Tower. Those documents are worth 1,000 words, if you follow me. I think what the Democrats are doing is to say, we can't let the horse get in front of the cart. We need some facts, pardon me, whatever that phrase is. We need some facts before we go through an impeachment process so we can tell the American people, this isn't just about us. This is about information from Trump's own people that tell us that something wrong happened.
Everybody stick around. There's a lot more news we're following. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
YouTube viewers, I'm actually thinking about letting you hear Matthew 24 again directly from my personal Bible. I know I have already played it for you twice, but this is gonna be my end of time special. This is gonna be my end of time special. But in case I decide to do more end of time specials, as far as I can remember, this is my very first end of time special. This is my very first end of time special, in case I decide to do more later on. Set my alarm for 6:55 p.m.
We're back with our team of experts. Jamie, the Democrats, they appear to be split on this whole issue of whether to begin impeachment proceedings in the House of Representatives against the president. You've been speaking to a lot of Democrats. What are you hearing?
Well, we heard all day today people coming out and saying, we're getting closer. You know, I think we're there. Nancy Pelosi, I am told, feels no pressure. She is not there yet. I spoke to a very senior Democrat today who said to me, impeachment would be political suicide. It would be giving Donald Trump a gift. We can't go there unless there is, as Nancy Pelosi said weeks ago, something clear, something convincing. So Nancy Pelosi, she controls that place. I would not underestimate her keeping the discipline together.
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez strongly disagrees. Listen to this, David.
Just as pursuing impeachment without grounds could be a political, could be interpreted as having political motives, I think impeaching and choosing to not impeach when there's an abundance of evidence could also be construed as politically motivated as well. And we can't be scared of elections. We need to uphold the rule of law.
So is her argument resonating?
Look, I think the Congresswoman chose her words carefully there, and she has a point. You know, to borrow from Rush, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. And I think she's right about that, but I also think that Jamie's point makes sense. Speaker Pelosi has been doing this a long time, and she understands, and the leadership of the Democrats understand, that if you go for impeachment, and even if you get it in the House, and then you don't get a conviction in the Senate, it ultimately chalks up as a win for President Trump, and Democrats are trying to sort of ward that off, and that is the danger.
What are you hearing,
Well,
Jen?
I just think the big question here, though, that is really frustrating a lot of members, though, is that impeachment does seem to be the most effective enforcement mechanism at obtaining all of this information that Democrats, that oversight is seeking. And what a lot of constituents are expressing to their bosses is a frustration that it feels like Congress can't even do their job on a day-to-day basis. I mean, you had someone like Representative Cicilline who put out a messaging memo on the end of last week encouraging his colleagues to stick to policy items, talking about health care, to really reset and stop talking about Mueller and Trump's bait. And then you saw him yesterday go back on that and say that today was the red line. If Don McGahn didn't show up to testify, he was going to call for initiating impeachment proceedings. But there is a difference at the end of the day of filing an impeachment article and initiating proceedings in order to leverage subpoenas to obtain more information.
I think that's totally right, except I think that the Trump administration, the White House, the president will spin it as impeachment once the word impeachment is in that sentence.
And, you know, Phil, we're also learning now that the Robert Mueller's team is hesitant to let him go appear publicly before Congress.
Only one word in that question you need to think about, and that is that word publicly. People are going to interpret that to mean they don't want him to testify. I testified a lot of times when you go into public testimony, that is in front of a camera, the senators or congressmen are going to sit there and say, how do I play to my constituents? How do I play to CNN? I think the debate is about whether the testimony, not whether it happens, whether it's public or private. You go into private, when I testified, Wolf, people who attack you in public, senators and congresswomen, they can't even bother to show up in private because they know that's a serious conversation. I think this is a debate about whether the special counsel shows up in public, and that's a hot mess, or whether he shows up in private, and that might be a serious conversation.
But if it happens in private for the American public, is that good enough? No. They've been waiting a long time to hear from Robert Mueller, so I think there is tremendous pressure for a public hearing. I spoke to a source who said that he thought it would happen, that they were negotiating out the terms now.
I want to play for you. This is the president at his political rally last night speaking about the FBI supposedly spying against the Trump campaign. Listen to this.
They were spying. They were spying on our campaign. I'll tell you what, if that ever happened to the other side, this thing would have been over 2 years ago. And, you know, it would have been treason. They would have called it treason. And that's what it is. It was treason. And it should never be allowed to happen to another president again. Ever, ever, ever.
You, at one point in your career, worked at the FBI. What's your reaction to that?
Let's go. Let me tell you something. There was spying and encouragement of spying. It's a presidential candidate encouraging a foreign adversary to steal information about an American presidential candidate. That's the American presidential candidate, in this case Donald Trump, saying, hey, Russians, Where are Hillary's emails? That's the president's son encouraging a foreign adversary, in this case a lawyer, going to Trump Tower saying, I know there's stolen information. Maybe I'd like to see it. That's a presidential advisor, Roger Stone, knowing that there's stolen information from a server saying, I'm happy to talk to the intermediary, that is WikiLeaks, that will publish that information. If we want a foreign adversary, and Rudy Giuliani went out there and said this was okay, talking about the Russians. If we want a foreign adversary to steal stuff and publish it, let me tell you who encouraged that. That's the president. That's stealing, that's spying.
And when he throws out the word treason, what's your reaction to that?
Treason means an American citizen sold out their government to a foreign power. Can you explain what FBI officials said? I would purposely serve the Russians before the Americans? I didn't see it, Wolf. I didn't see it.
You know, Jackie, a very different exchange that occurred up in Congress today. The Housing and Urban Development Secretary, Ben Carson's testimony, and he had this exchange with a lawmaker. Listen to this.
I'd also like you to get back to me, if you don't mind, to explain the disparity in REO rates. Do you know what an REO is?
An Oreo?
No, not an Oreo. An REO. REO.
Real estate?
What's the O stand for?
E, organization?
Owned. Real estate owned. That's what happens when a property goes to foreclosure. We call it an REO.
That was pretty awkward, that whole exchange right there. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, from Betsy DeVos to Ben Carson, I think it just shows how underqualified and underprepared a lot of these cabinet secretaries are. Ben Carson has managed to skim by these past 2 years. He's already announced that he's retiring by the end of the Trump administration. But, you know, the fact that he doesn't know basic terminology as it relates to his everyday duties is pretty troubling.
And he thanked, he made a joke out of it. He tweeted afterwards, oh, REO, thanks. At Rep. Katie Porter, she's the congresswoman who asked the questions. Enjoying a few post-hearing snacks, sending some your way. That he tried to spin it with a little cute tweet. All right, everybody stick around. There's much more news we're following. CNN is live in the leadoff presidential caucus state of Iowa as a Democratic candidate is trying to stand out from the crowded field. We're going to take a closer look at tonight's CNN town hall with Beto O'Rourke. And we'll also tell you how the U.S. military has now responded to a new show of force by Russian warplanes.
Okay, YouTube viewers, just to kind of make this video a little shorter, I'm gonna go ahead and play you one of the two things I was gonna play you after the news. I'm gonna go ahead and do one of those now. I'm not. That thing's fucking loading, man. Hello YouTube viewers. I know I've done these videos before, but I just thought I should do it one more time with a simpler title than I've done before. For this video, just so that those who are not good spellers can find it easier, but listen. Not long ago, The Lord told me, he said, Blake, go on YouTube and tell my people that Donald John Trump Sr. is the last president before I send Jesus back. Well, I went ahead and did that. And several days later, I asked them to verify that. And he didn't the first time. Then, a few days later, I asked him to verify it again. And then, that day, he repeated it several times that day and several times the next day. So I know for sure that Donald John Trump Sr. is the last president that the United States will have before Jesus comes back. This is not my word. This is the Lord's word alone. Thank you. Please like, share, keep that in mind, and subscribe. Donald John Trump is the last president before Jesus comes back. Thank you. YouTube viewers, I'm gonna let you hear another video on that I did on President Trump too. Hello, YouTube viewers. This is Blake Fannin. Listen. The other day, I was talking to the Lord, and I thought I heard him say that Trump would be the last president, but there were a few days. There was some time between then and now when I wasn't absolutely 100% certain that I heard correctly on that prophecy. But nevertheless, since I was almost 100% certain, I went ahead and came here on YouTube and gave that prophecy. Despite being just a little skeptical, I came on here and gave that prophecy. And then on the day that I made this one, I asked the Lord, I asked him to verify it one more time. I asked him to confirm it and remove all doubt. And he said that is absolutely accurate. He said that is absolutely accurate. Donald John Trump is the last United States president. This is the word from the Lord. I repeat, I heard for sure that Donald John Trump is the last president. He is the final United States president. He is the final one, and the hour for the rapture to happen is at hand. I repeat, the Lord is telling me to tell you that the hour for the Lord's return is near. It is at hand. It is not far off. Thank you. Please like, share, subscribe, and keep in mind, this is not me talking in these videos. This is the Lord's word. Thank you. YouTube viewers, listen to me very, very, very closely. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you have anything you need to do it within the next 10 seconds. I'm going to count backwards from 10. While I'm doing that, if there's anything you need to do, pause the video, do it now. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. YouTube viewers, I'm sorry for what just happened. It went and started another video while I was gone taking my pill, but I'm gonna let you hear another video I did about Trump, and I may not have time to show you Matthew 24 from my Bible firsthand, but at least you've heard it twice, so please keep that in mind. I'm sorry. I'm having a few technical issues during this time. Please pause the video and do whatever you need to do. YouTube viewers, if you look up, down, left, right, read the Bible, watch the news, the Lord's return is at hand. And I shared with you in a previous video titled Big News from the Lord, that a woman came by and said she heard a prophet who's predictions are always accurate. She said that he said that the Lord told him that Trump was going to be the last president. So I asked the Lord myself that. I asked him 2 times. I asked him yesterday and I asked him today, but I asked him more than once each day. I asked him if that was correct, and he said that was absolutely accurate. He said that was absolutely correct. This is what the Lord says. He says that was absolutely correct. Thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe, and remember, the Lord's coming soon. And in the book of Revelation, the Bible says there will be a one world government. There will be a one world government with a one world currency. Thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe. Okay, YouTube viewers, listen to me very, very closely. I am done letting you hear the news, but just listen closely to John chapter 10. But as I get ready for it, I advise you to pause this video and do what you need to do, and I have decided against posting Matthew 24 again.
I assure you, anyone who sneaks... Chapter 10. I assure you, anyone who sneaks over the wall of a sheepfold rather than going through the gate must surely be a thief and a robber. For a shepherd enters through the gate. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep hear his voice and come to him. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. After he has gathered his own flock, he walks ahead of them, and they follow him because they recognize his voice. They won't follow a stranger. They will run from him because they don't recognize his voice. Those who heard Jesus use this illustration didn't understand what he meant, so he explained it to them. I assure you, I am the gate for the sheep, he said. All others who came before me were thieves and robbers, but the true sheep did not listen to them. Yes, I am the gate. Those who come in through me will be saved. Wherever they go, they will find green pastures. The thief's purpose is to steal and kill and destroy. My purpose is to give life in all its fullness. I am the Good Shepherd. Chapter 10. I assure you, anyone who sneaks over the wall of a sheepfold rather than going through the gate must surely be a thief and a robber. For a shepherd enters through the gate. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep hear his voice and come to him. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. After he has gathered his own flock, he walks ahead of them, and they follow him because they recognize his voice. They won't follow a stranger. They will run from him because they don't recognize his voice. Those who heard Jesus use this illustration didn't understand what he meant, so he explained it to them. I assure you, I am the gate for the sheep, he said. All others who came before me were thieves and robbers, but the true sheep did not listen to them. Yes, I am the gate. Those who come in through me will be saved. Wherever they go, they will find green pastures. The thief's purpose is to steal and kill and destroy. My purpose is to give life in all its fullness. I am the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. A hired hand will run when he sees a wolf coming. He will leave the sheep because they aren't his and he isn't their shepherd. And so the wolf attacks them and scatters the flock. The hired hand runs away because he is merely hired and has no real concern for the sheep. I am the Good Shepherd. I know my own sheep, and they know me, just as my Father knows me, and I know the Father. And I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep too that are not in this sheepfold. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. And there will be one flock with one shepherd. The Father loves me because I lay down my life that I may have it back again. No one can take my life from me. I lay down my life voluntarily, for I have the right to lay it down when I want to, and also the power to take it again. For my Father has given me this command. When he said these things, the people were again divided in their opinion about him. Some of them said,
"He has a demon, or he's crazy. Why listen to a man like that?"
Others said,
"This doesn't sound like a man possessed by a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind?"
It was now winter, and Jesus was in Jerusalem at the time of Hanukkah. He was at the temple walking through the section known as Solomon's Colonnade. The Jewish leaders surrounded him and asked,
"How long are you going to keep us in suspense? If you are the Messiah, tell us plainly."
Jesus replied, "I have already told you, and you don't believe me. The proof is what I do in the name of my Father, but you don't believe."
Okay. Now, YouTube viewers, listen to me very closely. You heard it in John chapter 10. He says, "My sheep know my voice." Now listen to me very, very closely. I would not have made the videos I have played for you in this video about President Trump had I not heard, or had I not at least been fairly certain that I heard the Lord clearly say. Had I not been for certain, or at least fairly certain that I had heard my heavenly Father say that Trump was, or that Trump is going to be the last president, had I not been certain that I had heard my heavenly Father say that Trump is going to be the last president, I would not have made those videos on YouTube saying that he is. YouTube viewers, the point of this video is to show and prove to you that the end is near. That's why I have recorded everything in this video, except commercials from the news. Thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe.